What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, on today's episode, we are going to talk through the state of college football. I think we've mentioned it a good bit in the offseason, but here's kind of what we're going to go over is what's the state of our sport right now? How are things looking? What do we love about the sport? What's the state of NIL and the transfer portal? Where are things? Where do we see them going? What would be our perfect vision for the future for these areas? The college football playoff, the schedule for our sport right now, officiating, and anything else that comes up. We're just going to bundle it into what's, state of the union, kind of what's the state of our country, the state of college football. What's the state of our sport right now? I'm excited to dive in, Daniel. I'm just going to say, we've talked about it pre-show. We're going to try our best not to sound like grumpy old men. So to begin, Daniel, give me your opening statement, theory, conclusion. What is the state of our sport in college football right now?
Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans.
That's right.
Dude, college football is great. All right. It's been great.
It's great.
It's awesome. Currently, I think that there is a lot of uneasiness. If I was going to give like one way to describe everybody, uneasiness, uncertainty. I think there's a ton of potential. And so I think that that's what's driving a lot of these decisions. And so right now there's just a lot of change. And I don't say that flippantly. There's change, whether it be, the NIL and the portal, and those almost have become buzzwords because they've changed. But for 150 years, nothing changed. And then in the span of 4 years, things have changed extremely drastically. And, it took all that, we got to, not to go too far back, but, we got BCS 98 and then 2014, you get the college football playoff 4 teams. That still felt like a very gradual change. There has been I would say volatility is a good way to describe it, like the market volatility. Things have changed so much each year, going to the 12-team playoff, NIL transfer portal, all that stuff. I do get a sense that the market is somewhat coming to a correction. So we'll get into that a little bit and kind of get into some of the details. But there's just a lot of things that feel like they are loose ends that need to be tied up so that the sport can be preserved and the things we love about the sport can remain that. And we can even improve upon things that were not as good even when we, loved it, and maybe they could even get better. So we talk about the schedule. We talk about all kinds of things. So
yeah.
I'm excited to see it.
Daniel, I think college football is the biggest it's ever been. More people are watching it than have ever watched our sport. And the on the field and on TV product is also the most entertaining it's ever been. And the sport's huge. And I still don't think that college football has hit its potential. I think it's I'm going to dip into a little bit about what I love, but I'm going to save that point. It's the most change we've gone through, at least in our lifetime, probably that the sport's ever seen. Not all of that's good change. I think some of it has been good. Daniel, I did a project in college at Kennesaw State, Go Owls, where I forget what class it was for, but I had to convince someone. It was a lit class because I had to present like a persuading argument, but we had to make like a website video. It was like a semester-long project, like kind of like our capstone thing. And I did mine on why college athletes deserve to be paid. And this was back in 2014 in the fall. And I talked about how it was a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. And it's funny because that season, Daniel, you and I are Georgia fans. And that was the season Todd Gurley got suspended 6 games for $1,200 for signing autographs. And wasn't it the guy who paid for the autographs also turned him in?
Yeah.
Was that right? Wild. Anyway, that happens in the midst of me doing this project. And I was convinced, and I'm old school, Daniel. We're both old school. But I was convinced, I'm like, college athletes have to be paid. And then, of course, that happens in the middle of my project. And I'm like, that. So again, we've made some good changes. We've made some progress, and that college athletes can be paid for not only their name, image, and likeness, but pay for play as well, which I also argued for then. So a lot of change, like you mentioned, but I do have hope for the future if the right people can get their hands on the steering wheel of our sport. And my caution I'll start with is there's a great book by Bill Connelly called, I have to look on my shelf because Forward Progress. Thank you. I'm like, it's over there on the bookshelf. Bill Connolly's book, Forward Progress. He opens the book with NASCAR. And look, NASCAR's kind of had a revival the last couple of years, but if you see why, it's because they're kind of going back to their roots. They're trying to re-attract their old fan base because for years, NASCAR said, don't worry about the diehards. Those people will always be there. And slowly but surely, they made a lot of changes. They made the sport unrecognizable to their biggest fans, and their biggest fans walked away because they said, don't worry about the diehards. They're never going to leave. I just want to, my first caution, and we're going to dive into what we love, is college football. Please don't say don't worry about the diehards. They'll never leave, because I promise you there's enough entertaining stuff nowadays that people, I think it would take a lot for people to walk away from college football. Again, it's the biggest it's ever been, but don't always assume your diehards will be there. I think that's where college football is at right now. Daniel, look, we're not just going to complain here for 60 minutes. What do you love about college football right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I love, especially being in the SEC footprint. I feel like being in the South, it's not even, there's some states like Louisiana where you can walk around and every house is an LSU house. And then in the state like Georgia, and especially metropolitan Atlanta, I mean, every house could be a different, allegiance. They could have gone to a different, there's plenty of Auburn people in the state of Georgia, in the city of Atlanta, plenty of Alabama people, plenty of obviously Georgia Tech. You've got, but anyone. So my favorite is truly the rivalries. I think that being able to argue for your team against somebody, to have a healthy hatred for someone else, their team. I mean, not like specifically them, but this is where hatred is welcomed. You're supposed to hate this team. Yes. You're supposed to want the worst for that team. You're supposed to want them to fire their coach. Things like that. Traditions, pageantry, as if I'm going to steal one from Kirk Herbstreit and Brent Musburger and all of them. But I think just the romanticized college football. I love opening weekend, that Labor Day weekend. I feel like it's just so pure. There's so much going on, so much anticipation. Everybody feels like it's their year. Some people are lying to themselves, but it's definitely, that. And then, of course, rivalry weekend. Of course, I mentioned rivalries. Rivalry weekend after Thanksgiving. That's just like, those kind of tent poles of the season just kind of feel like, hey, this is special. These can't go away. They need to stay. And it kind of like intertwines into your life. It's not just a sport. It's like part of your, family discussions. My family, we're always discussing college football. We gather around, at Thanksgiving. It's like, that's top of mind, So I like, especially, in the South, how it will be part of, your family culture, your family history, rivalries. I mean, yeah, that's what I love about the sport. The regular season, every game feels like a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I was going to call out, is Saturdays still feel like ultra important in the moment. And when that feeling goes away, I think that's when I will start to love the sport less. And maybe in hindsight, we come record on Tuesday and we're like, man, that result felt so big and it kind of didn't really matter as it comes to the playoff or to the end of the season. But I mean, Josh Pate continually says this, but when the ball is spotted and it's 3rd down and 8 with 5 minutes to go in the 4th, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And that still feels not only amazing, it feels the biggest it's ever felt. It still feels ultra important, ultra urgent. I think that more eyes on the sport has caused a lot of good things. Several of those things are, look, more of the country is getting to see cool small towns, cool small college towns that are getting put on the national stage. And I hope that only increases. And I hope more schools don't get left behind. We're not talking about problems yet. Pullman, Washington, we see you. All right, we love you. More money equals better environments. These game day staffs are having to compete with one another and improve their game day environments in stadium, not just to look good on TV, but also for the people there, because they're competing with TV where millions more people are watching their games. And so more eyes equals more money equals better game day environments. And lastly, Daniel, there's more premier there's several things I don't like about conference realignment. One of the things I do like is you are getting more premier matchups in conference, and those games feel huge. I mean, I think about we've gotten in the last 2 seasons 3 versions of Georgia Texas, and that has felt like a new rivalry almost, and it has felt ultra important.
The SEC on ABC, I didn't mention, obviously a big CBS fans, all those years.
Yes,
but
we always have
been.
been.
Love the music and all that stuff. But truthfully, the SEC realigning and going to ABC, that 3 window, sometimes
Yep.
it's like those are the best 3 games of the day, and it's all 3 are on ABC. And I'm gonna flip around because I'm gonna check everything out, but the magnitude of those games, like you're saying,
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Oklahoma. Like these are premier in conference games that are deciding the fates of conferences. Michigan, USC, like premier brands, they're going to get played more often. I think that's been a positive part of conference realignment. Is I love these premier matchups in conference, specifically in the Big Ten and the SEC. Again, don't love the problems they caused, but I will agree that, hey, if you're asking me, what do you mean you don't love Michigan USC? Of course, I love Michigan USC. Of course I do. Of course, I'm going to watch.
It's our uniform matchup of the year.
Yes,
come on
now. That's why I called that one out.
Nice.
A lot to love about college, and I kind of said like, what do we love right now? And I was kind of doing based off the chain. There's so much more I love about college football, Daniel. I love that there's still, like you mentioned, pageantry, tradition, bands,
uniforms,
cheerleaders,
bands,
uniforms, tailgating. Like there's something about the environment on a college football Saturday, especially in person, and to surround the game that you don't get with the NFL, because tailgating on a college campus is so different than in some lame parking lot stadium. MetLife is this way, AT&T Stadium's this way, where it's just like stadium built on a huge slab of pavement with 1,000 parking places, and that's where your tailgating is. And that's not as cool as, being on North Campus and, sailgating at Tennessee and Washington, and, insert your college campus here. And the pageantry and the tradition of the sport is still unrivaled by any other sport in this country. And it's what makes college football really special. And you mentioned rivalries, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Fight songs, uniforms, yes. We're going to have plenty of tradition stuff to talk about on another episode. So lot to love about college football. Daniel, let's dive into one of the heavy hitters. 2 of the biggest changes in the last few years of our sport have been NIL, and let's also just call it what it is, paying players to play college football.
Right.
Players being able to make money, and also the transfer portal. And instead of this being an incremental change where, okay, players can now make money for autographs, and okay, now there's a one-time free transfer rule. And now it was just kind of like, whoops, the NCAA has mishandled this for the last 2 decades. Plus, floodgates opened. We kind of get pay for play and free agency every offseason, and actually until last year, twice a year in college football.
Right.
You can go do whatever you want. There are no rules. And I think these have been the 2 biggest changes to our sport ever.
Yeah.
Let's start with NIL, Daniel. Where's NIL right now? What do you like about NIL? What do you not like? What do you wish we could change if you're in charge and you can kind of cast the vision for our sport here?
Well, I think that, we've for so long wanted to be able to pay players, and that's a good thing. That's good, especially with how much has been going on. And, you start to look at all of the rules of amateurism of the past where like these guys couldn't even have like a part-time job if they were on scholarship, and there were so many like little things they couldn't do that would cause them to, be ineligible. It was one of those things where it was obviously needed to change. Now, NIL is what it was called. And as far as, for name, image, likeness, that was something that we were expecting to change. It has turned in exactly what you talked about, where it's pay for play, which is different. I just think that there needs to be more regulation, and that's going to come from a governing body. There needs to be regulation. There needs to be accountability. And, the market's going to correct itself to a certain extent. Like some of these boosters are not going to be like, boy, I would love to just give you $3 million every year in perpetuity so that we can sign this guy and sign that guy and then have a, losing season or something like that. There's going to be fatigue that happens and will cause some course corrections that will take time. And, a lot of this money being spent. But if we can get some sort of regulation, I'm not saying that necessarily has to be a salary cap, but every other sport that deals with money like this, there is a salary cap or a luxury tax in baseball. So you've got to kind of get that kind of a mindset, and it's both ways accountability. These college players are taking money and then leaving, and then you're starting to see them get sued by their previous school. There's a lot of legalities that are happening. I think that NIL and transfer portal can work together. Right now, they're working against each other, and
That's a good
they
way
are
to say it,
causing all these additional problems. So, the ways you can get to work together, which, I know we're not talking transfer portal, but I would say that, if you did go to a one-time transfer rule, like one portal window a year, which is what they've already done, good on them for like making the step towards that. You could fix signing day, but I think ultimately if you could get it to, hey, you get one free transfer is what it should have been out of the gate instead of free for all, because it went from you can't transfer unless you're going to sit out a year to, you can transfer as long as you have a hardship, or if you're a graduate, you can transfer and play right away, to then now with the transfer portal, they're like, just do whatever you want all the time. So if we could do a one-time transfer, I think that that's fair. That way kids make mistakes. They make hasty decisions at 18. I don't think they should be penalized for making that decision. They get one free transfer, and then when you graduate, you can then transfer again. I think that also incentivizes them to stay in school and to kind of finish what they started, because as the old NCAA commercials say, not everybody goes pro in football. They go pro in something else. So keep that in mind. And then, you do have some assurances in there. Like if your head coach gets fired or quits, like you're going to be able to have an additional, like you get to go in the portal and have a free transfer. I think that's fair. So then I think that just it puts just a small amount of guardrails on it, and it basically stops all this indecision. And I think it also forces the schools to be more loyal in who they're taking. Right now, you've got schools that are pushing guys into the portal because they're wanting to bring in another guy. And I think it's just de-emphasizing high school recruiting. And overall, it could ultimately lead to the decay of the sport if they don't do something about it. So I think if they do that, it would cause there to be maybe a contract for the NIL where it's a multi-year thing, and maybe they are paying players as they get older rather than paying it's not sustainable to pay freshmen more than you're paying a senior unless they are the main contributor. I should say pay a starter versus, an incoming backup freshman or something like that, developmental guy. So anyways, that's my long preamble. I think that it's going to take a governing body to put these things into place, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, I have to begin my argument with we need a CBA and a governing body and enforcement, because right now we don't have that. And here's the thing, Daniel, I have been anti-government intervention for the whole time. I'm like, anything but Congress getting involved.
They do ruin a lot of stuff.
They ruin a lot of stuff. And at this point, I'm like, anything to get involved. Like, if anyone wants to get involved and add some guardrails, by all means. I don't think any fan or writer or pundit in the sport can look at the camera or look at me in the eyes and be like, no, like, this is exactly how it should be. This is good. This is good for the sport. Everything about this is perfect. We don't need to change a thing. I don't think even if you're the beneficiary of good portal classes, or you are Texas Tech and you can just outspend everybody in your conference to go build a roster that can pretty much walk into the Big 12 championship game every year, I don't even think those fans would tell you that they love the fact that there's no rules and no enforcement.
Right.
And so we need enforcement, as you said. I think it's a great point. And I'm kind of tying this point with both together, NIL and portal, is that we need public contracts. And I think this only comes, unfortunately, with a CBA, with collective bargaining like the NFL has, where either the conference, or we're not going to talk about this today, but I wasn't planning on it. Whatever is next whether it's a super league and it is the Big Ten and the SEC, and it is called like, the College Football League or whatever. What is that? College CFL? Nope, that's the thing. That's already a thing. Anyway, there is a league of college football where the money is coming, just like the NFL. When you get paid by the Falcons, your check actually comes from the NFL, not the Falcons, because anyway, that's how they can enforce contracts. There's no free trades. Everything is collectively bargained between the NFLPA and the NFL. Anyway, we need something like that in college football so that we can know what these contracts are, because players are signing multi-year contracts. We just don't know it. We have no idea what the buyout is. We have no idea what they're getting paid. Everything is kept in secret, which is why I think I have a lot of frustration, and I think why a lot of fans have a lot of frustration is, you see these articles where it's like, we talked to 10 GMs from college football teams and anonymously, and here's what they had to say, and they think this school is paying $40 million for a roster, and spending has gone. This is a stat, like spending the average cost for a roster went up 50 to 60% this year. Fans don't know and honestly don't care. The NFL has done a really good job of making fans actually care about this stuff, and you're a lot more locked in with this than I am, Daniel, of like salary caps and can you meet the cap, and there was supposed to be a salary cap, Daniel, but none of it's being enforced because there's not a unifying governing body. There needs to be one, and I'm not counting on the NCAA to be that. I think they made their bed. They're gonna have to lie in it. The NCAA is dead. There's nothing they can do. So that's why overall, to say the sport, Daniel, I want to fast forward to the next chapter, whatever's next. My first thing is we need public contracts, and like you said, with enforcement, a governing body. I like your idea for one transfer. I don't know if I think the contracts would solve that, in that hey, this player signed a 3-year contract, this one signed a 1. So we at least know at the end of this season, this player's on the market and these are not. So I think contracts could solve the
That's fair.
transfers.
Mine is trying to avoid a CBA potentially, but if you go CBA, then absolutely
And look, you sign a player out of high school and you get a player who's like, I'm going to bet on myself and sign a 1-year deal. That's fine. And you have a player who's like, I want to stay here and be developed, or, hey, you know what? This is maybe my best offer is from Kennesaw State. Georgia offered me a 1-year deal because they don't know. Kennesaw State offered me a 4. I'm going to go there. And Daniel, here's where I want to steal from the Premier League. This is a pipe dream. This one's not realistic.
Oh yeah.
I think public contracts are realistic. I think that instead of transfer windows, I think if you get a CBA, players signing different levels of contract even out of high school is realistic. What I think is not realistic is the Premier League and other soccer teams, they have transfer fees. Have we talked about this on this podcast?
We haven't.
Okay. Have you and I talked about it?
I mean, we're talking about
a little
it
bit
now.
maybe.
I know about transfer fees.
Okay. I'm like, so you're familiar. If you're not familiar, if Manchester United, a big soccer team in England, wants to, let's say some other smaller team, AFC Richmond, it's a made-up team from Ted Lasso, has a player that they identified at 14 years old,
Danny Rojas,
and they brought in and they've developed them and trained them, and now he's this 18-year-old sensation, one of the best players in the world, but he is under contract with AFC Richmond, until he's 22. Well, Manchester United not only can buy him out of this contract and pay him a new contract. That currently happens in college football. When schools train, it's just not talked about publicly, is players do have buyout clauses. That currently happens.
Right.
But there's an added transfer fee, and that is negotiated. In addition, Manchester United is going to pay just straight up cash to AFC Richmond and there's been record transfer fees. I couldn't say at the top of my head, but I mean, $25 million transfer fee. Because Daniel, what this could do is this could keep the group of 5 healthy.
Yeah.
Is when you have these group of 5 schools who identify a 2-star or a 3-star and develop them. Right now, you know what the group of 5 school gets when that player blows up and gets taken by, a Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama? They get nothing. They get laughed at. They get spit on. They get a middle finger and told to have a good day. And by the way, you're also not getting the TV contract that these other schools are getting. You're not getting as much money. Anyway, this could help, because I know with the schedule stuff, a lot of major coaches have talked about, we have to keep these cupcake games to, it helps give money to these smaller athletic departments. This could help solve that problem of you pay a transfer fee to Toledo and now they've got $20 million to go buy a roster.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be that much, but
It'd have to be a
that's
great
more
player.
of a pipe dream.
They signed Bo Jackson, the real Bo
Yeah.
Jackson, and then
The real one.
yeah,
So, okay, transfer fee. I was like, I had to explain that one. I like that we've changed to one portal window in the short term.
Yeah.
Because
and it's
as a
before
college-
spring, so I think
I was gonna
that's
say.
a good spot for it to be.
as a fan, I just want to enter spring practice and know who's going to be on my roster through the year.
It was weird this year to actually, because of the past couple of years, I was listening to Chuck Oliver here in Atlanta, and he was talking about maybe Missouri or some coach, and he was like, yeah, they know who their quarterbacks are on their roster. They have them. They have to figure out.
They're on the roster.
And he said his explanation was that he was talking about just in general, previously, because of that portal window, you have been seeing coaches pretending like they don't know who their quarterback is until they announce in August. And now they will say, yeah, in the spring, hey, this is our guy. That way, the summer workouts, which are usually player led, they will have, that quarterback will say, hey, I'm the guy. He'll go knock on doors.
Yep.
Hey, come, let's go, throw routes, that kind of thing. So I think you'll see a shift a little bit this year where we haven't seen the past couple of years. So that's good.
And again, something we love as parents of young kids. Hopefully this means spring games can stay around. And several schools either canceled them altogether or didn't want to put them on TV because they're like, I'm not going to televise my second and third stringers for school A to come and swoop in and right. And I don't blame schools for doing that. But as a fan,
it hurts us.
The portal is already over. It hurts. We're the ones that get hurt in this. So hopefully this means we can keep spring games. Those are the perfect days to take kids to. It's fun to watch when we're missing football. And it's been months since it's been on, and it's March and April, and Clemson has a spring game today. I can't wait to. It's something to have on. It's real football. It's tape to watch. Okay, I'm trying to make sure I have all my points here, Daniel. Okay, hate the secrecy I talked about. No rules. The gap between the haves and have-nots we could solve. Here's something else I think you're starting to see. Wisconsin's a good example this year. I think you're going to, and Florida did it last year. I think you're going to see teams. This is a positive thing of NIL is give coaches a longer leash.
Mm-hmm.
This goes both ways. But you could fire a coach and pay them a buyout, or you could take that money that you might already have and invest it back into a roster and give them one more year, which Wisconsin did this year. They didn't fire Luke Fickell, and apparently they're one of the biggest spenders this season for players in high school and transfer recruiting.
And how contracts work, their buyout gets less. So if they squander that, you're not necessarily out that money. You're just going to pay the buyout the next year, but it's probably $10 million less than it was, when you fired them the following year.
I have a point I want to make about the one transfer window.
Yeah.
But I want to get to the schedule because I'm going to save it for that because I'll mention it here. I think one transfer window, a good thing is that you had those 2 transfer portal weeks were insane, and it was a great news week for college football. The problem is it was happening at the same time as the college football playoff.
Right.
If we can solve that, you can have what you're about to have this week with the NFL, which is the season. The league season has started.
Best week of the
and it's free agency, and you can have this with college football where the season's over. Then the 2026 season has begun, and now the portal is open. It's one window. It's 2 weeks, and you get to dominate headlines without being like. And this player's in the transfer portal. By the way, the semifinal is in 6 days. And what are we doing?
Like, to your point, if it is one portal window, like we've talked about, a one-time transfer rule potentially, then it's huge news. And if we have public contracts, then you're looking at it and you're like, hey, these guys are all on 3-year contracts. Don't even look at them. But these are guys to watch that can jump into the portal. They're on 1-year deals. And then you're getting notifications of them like re-signing with their team, or they are, entering the portal and looking for elsewhere. So it would be a big news week, like you said. And then it would also be something digestible for like analysts to say, hey, these are the best 1-year contract players out there. They could make a list. These are the top 30 1-year contract players, and then, put them out there. And then it becomes more, it's not so much of a just oversaturated, like 3,000 people entered the portal. Hayes Fawcett is losing his thumbs from tweeting so much. And, like we're able to really zero in on this is what's going on.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. NIL portal, obviously the biggest changes. That's kind of our current state. There's some stuff we can do. We can keep it around and make it better, man. But I think you and I agree on the biggest thing to make this work is you've got to have a unified governing body to make this work. And my thing to add to your point of that was public contracts, which I think only comes with a collective bargaining agreement, unfortunately. But I think that's where we're going, Daniel.
Yeah.
Let's go to the college football playoff. Look, we can't go backwards. Cat's out of the bag. Genie's out of the bottle. We're not going back to 4 teams, Daniel. As much as you and I would probably still prefer that. So we won't. I'm not going to belabor that point, but what's your thoughts on the playoff? What do we like? What do we wish could change? What do we want to stop doing? Thoughts, state of the college football playoff.
Yeah. I do want to go back to 4 teams. Could we go to 8 teams? Because we've never done 8 teams.
Yeah, never tried it.
We've never done it. So, like, could we do 8 teams? I would be in favor. I would still be fine with because if it's basically got to either stay the same or get more, I would be fine with staying at 12. I did mention I think 16 seems like it's going to happen at some point. I think that the 24 you're hearing is it's all about like contract just negotiations and stuff. Like it's just them being ridiculous to try to get more. Like, oh, you want all these automatic qualifiers? Well, let's just do 24 and get this many SEC teams in or this many Big Ten teams in.
Dude,
so that's crazy.
The more I hear them talk, the more I think they're serious.
I think that they want you to think
I'd
they're
heard
serious.
that.
I don't think that. I think 16 is going to happen. I think
here's the one that made me question it was Josh Heupel. The SEC's proposal is not 24. The SEC is very against 24. Heupel's saying he's for it. Is this fear over the 9th conference game and not valuing wins and losses, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But Kirby Smart made a good point. He said the people arguing for 24 probably don't have – they want – it's all about money, right? They want premier matchups. So for them to get more premier matchups to make more money, they need a 2014 playoff. Kirby Smart's point was we don't need that in the SEC. There's more people watching, for example, a Georgia-Texas regular season game than those are 2 big brands. I was going to say if it's Ohio State, Oregon, people are going to watch that.
Oklahoma and South Carolina, more people are watching that game
than Iowa, Penn State.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Right.
You've got so many more eyes on that game, and you've got.
I thought that was a good point.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. There's so much, and you're talking about inventory, TV inventory, and that's what the whole deal with ESPN has been for the SEC. Getting that 9th game, they're going to get all these extra games. You get 16 more games or whatever it is. So a whole extra amount of games for the SEC on ESPN. So that's one thing. It is frustrating to hear 24. I think that starts to, I think 12 kind of bastardizes the regular season already, but that would definitely be the case if you're at 24. 16, I could get to in the sense of saying, all right, Power 4, top 4 conference champs, or Power 4 conference champs you're in, and then just the top, seeds after that. You're not catering to the group of 5 or group of 6, excuse me. I'm never going to get used to that. I'm used to Power 5, group of 5.
It's whatever.
Power 4.
We know what you're talking about.
It's going to change.
We know what you mean.
Here's the thing. All right. They're going to keep doing these stopgaps until 26 when the ACC dissolves. That's unfortunately a foregone conclusion at that point. I kind of think we got 10 years left. They're trying to figure that out. But if we can figure it out, I want a group of 6 to have their own playoff and that to be a big deal and to use the bowl games to do it if they need to, have some on campus. I want more on campus games. If that's what 16 is going to provide, is a better base of on campus games, fine. 2036, the ACC, their contract is up. And if I'll say this, I know that we're not here talking about realignment or anything like that. We're talking about college football playoff. I think the 2 are tied together. The ACC, when it does dissolve, unfortunately, whenever that happens, there will be, you know, the Big 12 will be trying to get in as part of it, but it's really going to be Big 10, SEC are going to go cherry picking. They're going to get the best teams out of those. Their TV rights deal goes till 2036. If Florida State had not just been a, like a dumpster fire the past 2 years.
Hot dog water.
Hot dog water. Like I used before the pot, they were hot dog water, or as my buddy Grant would say, slaw. They're slaw the past couple of years. After that 13-1 season, if they just followed it up with a couple of modest 10-win seasons, not even compete for big stuff, but just don't fall flat on your face, I think they would have already found a way to pay to get out. But because of how terrible they've been, and Clemson, I think that you could say it's almost saved the ACC a few years of them all just kind of staying together, like tail tucked between their legs. Like maybe we shouldn't be arguing for this, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. There's a lot of volatility with it. I think it's tough for them to say this is going to be the ideal model while are there still going to be 4 power conferences in 10 years? I mean, obviously they got to make a decision for right now and for the next few years, but I'm kind of thinking they're going to kick the can for about the next 10 years. I don't know what that's going to mean for the Big 12, if there's going to be 3 conferences, if they're going to value them all the same, especially if everybody defect, anyways, that's a whole different conversation. We're not getting into that. My preference would be to stay at 12 or to go lower. But if they do change it and it has to change 16, I'm fine with. I just want the least amount of automatic qualifiers possible and the most at-large bids possible. I would like for there to still be conference championship games, but I'm a purist. That's probably I romanticized the SEC championship, and that's probably my fault. So
I hate the buys and the breaks. So my playoff take is also a schedule take, Daniel.
Do it.
So I kind of need to talk about it kind of both and, because I'm fine with 12 teams. I think we are going to go to 16, but I think the way this works is if you fix the schedule for college football.
Okay.
So that's my biggest complaint with the playoff is the schedule. Can I just lay out my perfect college football schedule?
Yes.
Is that okay?
I want you
Can we lay this out? Okay. I don't have exact dates on this. Just go with me. All right. I like the landing model in that, I think that's what we're calling it, right? The landing model.
Yeah.
Season needs to end on January 1st or thereabouts, or the first Saturday in January or something there. I like January 1st because it's a built-in holiday. I would love to do it at the Rose Bowl. I've gotten pushback that the fan experience at the Rose Bowl is not what it looks like on TV, etc. That's fine. January 1st.
I think if it was the national championship every year, I think it would be a better fan experience. I think that they would invest heavily in it and it wouldn't be so stale.
Yes. I completely agree.
Dude.
If that was the home of the college ball playoff national championship, yes, they would invest it the same way that Omaha is invested in for baseball, even though it's one tournament a year.
1,000%.
The money that would be poured into that, if the whole sport was like, this is our Mecca, this is our cathedral venue to end the sport at 5 p.m. Eastern on January 1st, the amount of money that would be poured into that. And here's the other thing, Daniel. This is, again, I don't think this is reality, unfortunately, but it's just the Rose Bowl. It's not the national championship. The Natty is the Rose Bowl game, period. The Rose Bowl game just becomes college football's national championship. That'd be amazing. So you got to start there, all right? I'm going to go in order of the year to make it a little less confusing. So January 1st, the season ends, national championship. You have 2 weeks off. Third week of January, for 2 weeks, you get the transfer portal, or for a week or for 10 days. So again, the perfect calendar, the portal's open. Your one window, it's free agency in college football. First Wednesday of February, you still have National Signing Day. So it's kind of back-to-back recruiting. Then February is a break for the sport. Everybody needs it. It's a dead period. Players can't work out. Coaches can't visit with recruits. It is a built-in, 3 or 4 weeks of break. All right. Or maybe you can do internal stuff if you want to make practice plans for spring ball, whatever. March and April, you get spring practice. And then when you don't, still a dead period. Let these kids get good grades in high school for recruiting.
Yes.
All right. So spring ball, spring games, both good things. In March and April in the off season. May, schedule release. You find out your schedule. They make it a huge deal.
I love it.
Just like the NFL does. Teams do fun social media stuff. Maybe you invite your donors for a schedule release event for each school. You know, like get creative.
That's a good fundraiser. Cool. Dude.
That's right. All right. That's in May. June, recruiting season. Dead period ends. Kids have graduated. And it is busy recruiting season. But we've had a lot of breaks in the spring. And these college football coaches who are already used to running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, they don't mind this. This is busy recruiting season because you know what happens in July, Daniel? Early signing day in July before the football season, not in the middle of conference championships. In July, early national signing day. All right. Then we get into camp in August. We start the regular season week 0 with any guesses?
Any guesses?
A football game to start the season every year, week 0.
Chick-fil-A kickoff game.
Army, Navy. Week 0, standalone game. No other teams can play week 0.
Is great.
It is Army, Navy.
And it's played in the Northeast, so it's not too blistering hot.
And I know there's going to be people that, but the snow. I'm like, guys, college football's changing. I promise you, they do not care about Army, Navy. There's no executive order that can stop this. They will run over that game. If you care about it, week 0, standalone game. It is the start of football season every year. You want to, if you want to keep it special,
at that game to kick off the season.
I know.
I've got goosebumps.
And everybody who's been starving from college football for 9 months,
second of that game, dude.
You will have 35 million people watch this game,
dude.
Anyway, that's the start of the college football season.
Awesome.
Every year is Army, Navy,
100.
week 0, standalone game.
No notes.
Do like a 3:30 game. Game days there. Big kickoffs there. Everybody just all right. Week 1. Here's my only caveat. Are we getting rid of conference championships? In my scenario, we are. If we're not, you got to move the whole season up a week.
I will allow you to, for the sake.
All right.
I'm gonna say, hold up, let him cook, and then I'll listen. Okay.
Because I like the season starting Labor Day. I think that's fun. Labor Day weekend. So I'm going to say we're getting rid of conference championships.
Okay.
The season starts Labor Day weekend. You run through the season. First weekend of December is your first playoff games. You go around.
So this
1, 2, 3, 4.
means that we keep rivalry weekend the same. It's
Thanksgiving
still
weekend.
Thanksgiving weekend.
Still Thanksgiving weekend.
So you're winning me over with that, even though we're losing conference championships. I'm here. Okay, continue.
Like I'd rather keep that than conference championships, especially because conference championships don't mean as much as anymore.
If you pitched it to me that way, I would also vote keep rivalries at that point.
And that's where I'm at. So, and then you play, 4 rounds of playoffs, the 4 weekends of December, and either this solves 2 things. If you keep a 12-team playoff, it keeps the bye normal, a normal bye week. If you go to 16 teams, everybody just plays 4 weeks in a row. Your season ends rivalry week, and the next week, either all but 4 teams are playing a game if it's a 12-team playoff, or if it's a 16-team playoff, you're playing. Everybody's playing a game that next week, no bye weeks, and so you finish January 1st. And I'd keep all games on campus for the playoff. I would do until the national championship, but I know that's a bridge too far. Just give me the first 2 rounds on campus. You can have the semi on a neutral.
And then that would solve the point of people who've had bye weeks. Everyone would at least get a home game if they have qualified for it by being at one of the best teams.
And if it's 16, you might get 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
Which again, imagine, anyway, there's been some big schools who have not hosted a playoff game yet that could be hosting. Don't dog me, Group of 6 fans. Oregon, James Madison was cool, but imagine if Oregon was hosting Ohio State at Austin Stadium instead of James Madison. What's that environment look like? We saw what Georgia almost looked like at 3:30 in the regular season. Imagine if that was a playoff game in Athens. So, and then the season wraps up January 1st. That is a rough building of my perfect college football schedule. I think I've solved it. Thoughts?
I'm in. My only downside is losing conference championships, but if it means that we're going to get on campus, potentially multiple on-campus weeks of playoff games, I'm here for it. You're preserving you're preserving traditions is what I'm hearing. You're having to change some, but you're preserving Army Navy, which I think would be
As a standalone game.
electric. And then, yeah, and then you've got obviously some years you end up with 2 bye weeks because of how the schedule falls, and then some years it's 1 bye week. But otherwise, you keep it. Starts the technically week 1 is Labor Day. Last week of the regular season is Thanksgiving weekend. I like that because that keeps things feeling normal. And then, yeah, dude, if we can keep those keep games on Saturdays, and then either it is the Rose Bowl, or if they have too much problem with that, moving it to the Saturday after, the next Saturday in January. Let's not have Monday night at 8 p.m. national championship, whatever we do.
I did want your feedback on signing days in July and February. Like, instead of an early signing day in December, it's actually before the senior season. I think there's some risk there. And maybe if you're a player who's like, I don't need senior tape, you sign. But then you still get the players who explode their senior season. You still get them in February.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good because February signing day will be like you initially pitched it. It's right after the portal, so you kind of get your portal wrap up, and then all your senior pop offs who are like late signees are all together in one pile. But you kind of have your base scheduled, and yeah, I mean, basically those 8 weeks, June and July, is crazy, and then you conclude July with signing day. I think that works. You could move it up a week, so it's dependent upon how early teams are going to start their camp technically. So it could be the second to last week of July, whatever that needs to be. But yeah, I like it because we need to separate them more than they are now, and that way it also will make. We talk about just TV inventory and having like what the NFL does with their week of, free agency, and like they just had the deadline for the franchise tag yesterday. So tomorrow, next Monday, legal tampering begins. And then I can't believe we call it that, but legal tampering period. And then, officially on Wednesday, they can sign contracts next week. So it would feel like that with the signing day, being like, it would be a big deal. These guys have waited a long time. It's been a long time. We didn't realize these guys were going to have such great senior seasons, or this really big prospect we thought was going to sign with Ohio State in July didn't. And then they played his whole senior season, and then now Michigan's after, whatever. It would be like, it would bring the drama back to signing day, which right now has been very
Nothing.
sterile. It's just not exciting right now. The second signing day.
Agreed. Anything you would add to the schedule? I kind of jumped to both spots there.
No, I mean, I think that some other stuff is gonna kind of work itself out with all of the schedule changes, with different conferences working, doing different amount of conference games, and I think you're gonna have a push for more on-conference stuff. But as far as like the actual schedule itself, I mean, that would be, it's legitimately my only concern is like, it'd be nice to have conference championships, but like if we're truly going to move to this model and it's kind of a forced thing, this way I feel like it's a good way to preserve what we love about the sport. Like, let's keep rivalry weekend. Let's keep week 1, Labor Day weekend. Let's play these games on Saturdays. Let's not have guys worn out or also rusty from having so much time off. Let their time off be all when the season's done. Don't have this, anticipation that I think sometimes can cause a staleness to the sport, where there's 30-day layoff for a certain team, or, just like all that time that's between, the second round and then, the quarterfinal and the semifinal and then the championship. It's like all that time just feels like we've squandered this whole month of December. And I think that you could, if you got a governing body, have them sit down with the NFL and figure out what makes sense for both sports, and not feel like you're And if you are competing at the same time, well, you know what, Jacob, I like college football more. I'm going to watch college football instead of the NFL. There's NFL fans that like the NFL more. They're going to watch that instead. If you're a true ball knower, you're probably going to put both games on at the same time. So
Yep.
People will find a way to watch it. You need to stop being nervous about losing a head-to-head battle. Like, play the games on the weekends, in December. I think that would be great. It will hinder some families' schedules as far as the holidays, but really, why are you scheduling to be all these different places in the holidays anyways? You should learn your lesson. Stay at home, watch college football.
That's right. Okay, Daniel. Lastly, officiating.
Oh,
Like a
yeah.
smaller bucket, but we got to talk. This is an in-game thing that I think frustrates everybody, and everyone says that officiating is the worst it's ever been. And I think college football is the most public it's ever been. So I don't know if it's the worst it's ever
Casuals
been.
have gotten the most access to our bad officiating that has always been there.
That's right. Daniel, is there anything going well with officiating? What would you change? How do we fix officiating in college football?
I think mostly officiating is going pretty good. I think
so too. I think mostly it's going good.
That, I feel like they do a good job of deferring to replay. Sometimes it's exhausting. I don't think they should do it as much, but I think they do a good job of, if something's close, calling it in the fashion that it can be reviewed, I think is good. And I think ultimately they do that. And there's been times, Jacob, where I see something the first time and I'm like, they're crazy, that's wrong. And then I see it slow motion. I'm like, dude, this guy's got great vision. He knows what he's doing. Now, that's what's going good. What's going bad? What's targeting? I don't think anybody knows.
We still don't know.
I could give you a definition, but I feel like it's been, done incorrectly based on even what I think. And I think that it's truly there for optics at times. And it's like, okay, this guy got hit hard. Chill out. It's fine. So that's one thing. And the only other one I'm going to mention, I know you probably have a couple, but I really like what the ACC did. So we talked about what's going good. The ACC lets you listen to all the reviews. And I just think there's a certain level of, first of all, accountability. And I don't mean that to, I don't think it's dangerous to do that with the SEC. These fans are crazy. But it's nice to have accountability. But I would really just like to hear how they reason it out. If they shouldn't be scared. I think they should just be truly honest. And I think if they are genuinely, this is what I'm saying, unfortunately, or if we heard how they're talking to each other, hey, we really can't overturn this because there's not enough evidence. I agree. Yeah, look, because this and, if you heard a couple people conferring back and forth, I think for me, if that call's going against me, but I hear that they've done that, I am much more forgiving when they come out and say, this is this, because I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I think it would go a long way to heal a lot of the wounds that people have with review if they would just let everybody listens to every review. You could even run ads while it's going on the side if you want to. They're all about ads. Let the audio be here and let it be some sort of ad picture in picture. Some people do that already, but I think that would be very beneficial to the sport.
It's clarity, man. It's at least I hear the explanation and I understand better, and they're trying to be quick about it too. They've got a timer on there. They're trying to be as fast as possible. And they're just saying hey guys, do you see enough evidence to overturn this? We all agree. Yes. Okay. We're going to go, call on the field stands. And it's you hear the answer.
It's this yard line, this much time on the clock. Let's move.
To Daniel, I think we're getting big enough. What's funny is, does the NFL have full-time refs yet? Or is that still don't have full-time refs?
I don't
think
the
NFL officiating is far superior to college football. But can we not have enough money to get some full-time refs in some of these big leagues? Again, this will be collective governing body. Maybe we can get some full-time refs. Okay, this is a rule I've always wanted to change. So I got to mention it, the touchback rule. I think it's the dumbest rule in football, NFL or college, outside of some egregious targeting calls and having a player out for the game. I hope we solve that soon, please. It is so easy to judge intent, Daniel.
Yeah.
99% of targeting is not intentful. You don't need to kick a player out of the game for that. We've taken spearing out of the game. Anyway, it's not the rule I'm talking about. Fumbling a ball out of the end zone should not be a touchback. It is the most punishment doesn't fit the crime penalty in college football. The ball should not be turned over. I think I'm fine if you want to bring it back out to the 20, but it's the only play in which if you fumble it out of bounds at the inch yard line, it's your own ball at the inch yard line. If it goes 1 inch further and hits the pylon and goes out of bounds, it is the other team's ball on the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. If you want to make it a turnover, I still disagree, but put it on the 3.
Yeah.
You just drove the length of the field, and you're giving a team a free 20 yards because of 1 inch of difference. I don't even think it should be a turnover, Daniel. My thing is, I think it should be your own ball on the free 3-yard line, but if you really want to punish somebody and be like, you shouldn't fumble out of the end zone, like, you can't do that down here. Bring it out to the 20, but you get to keep the ball. Something's got to change. That's just one of those, the punishment does not fit the crime, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because then they're still in field goal
football
range, so it's like, and you can keep the down. I agree. I think you keep the down. There's not like you reset first down. That's preposterous.
No.
Let's say it was third down and they fumbled.
Now it's fourth down.
It's fourth down, but you're on the 20, so it's like, okay, hey,
maybe it was 4th and goal, and now you're on the 20.
Yeah. So you can go on the 20, you can kick a field goal, or if you need the touchdown, of course, you do the lower percentage touchdown try, but you're at least in striking distance. The ball didn't go to the other side. I agree.
Daniel, I think we fixed college football. We just need to send this to the right people. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as the right people right now. So I don't know who we're going to send this to, but I think we have fixed the sport.
Yeah.
Be sure to follow us for more content like this at the Extra Point Pod on Instagram. Daniel, next week we are going to talk about, we have a fun March Madness topic. How is this, Daniel? People love to compare teams from different years. I think that's near impossible, but we're going to do it for March Madness. Daniel, it turns out there are exactly 64 teams that have made the college football playoff. So why not do a 64 team bracket? What is the best college football playoff team? We have seeded them. We are going to pick winners and losers and crown for March Madness the greatest college football playoff team of all time. We'll do that next week here on the Extra Point College Football Podcast. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. That will do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob. See ya.